Hi everybody, this is Bill Knutson, host of the Sportsocology show. It's Friday, February 21st, 2014, and I've got a bunch of things I want to get to today, so I'm not going to take too much time. I'm going to get right into business. The first thing I want to talk about is the incident with Ray Rice, the star running back of the Baltimore Ravens. That happened this past weekend in Atlantic City. And to me, it seems like the world has gone crazy sometimes. From what I understand, obviously I wasn't there. I'm just going by what I heard and the videos I've seen and everything. There was some kind of altercation between Ray and his fiancée, and he knocked the woman unconscious. Now, I don't know exactly, like I said, what was going on. I understand she may have been intoxicated, obviously angry over something, I don't know. But how much does it really matter? The guy is an NFL football player, but beyond that, he's a man. How do you knock a woman unconscious? I don't care what she's doing, I don't care what she's saying, I don't care if she's drunk, what have you, I don't care what the situation is. He knocked the woman unconscious. I do not understand. There is no way that any man would do that to a woman. And the video that I saw is he's dragging her through the casino to wherever they were going. And there was another video of him in the elevator with her, and she's laying on the ground unconscious, and he kicks her legs out of the way so the elevator door would close. How does any man do that? The answer is no man would ever hit a woman and degrade her and treat her like that. Now, everything I've heard about Ray Rice, he does a lot of charity, he does things for anti-bullying, so on and so forth, so everybody thinks that he's a really, really nice guy. But if you think about it, we don't really know what these professional athletes, famous actors, famous athletes, whatever, we don't know what they're really like. We know what we see on the football field or on the TV screen or the movie screen. But again, that's not necessarily real life. That doesn't mean that we know those people. And I don't know. That's just crazy. I was extremely upset by that. I hope the NFL steps in and really does something to Ray Rice about this. I'm anticipating that they're going to let the legal process happen and see what goes on, with the court system later on. He originally had a court date on Tuesday, but for whatever reason that I'm not sure of, that was postponed. But the NFL really needs to do something, because that is just so far off the chart crazy. I don't even know what the word is. There is no way a man, let alone, not just an athlete, but a man of any kind, there is no way that a man would do that to a woman. But anyway, that's got me really frustrated, but I'm going to move on because I've got a couple of other things I have to vent on before I can talk about things that are much more pleasant to talk about and to hear. I'm sure a lot of you are aware about what happened to the San Francisco Giants fan 3 years ago, opening day. He was at Dodger Stadium watching his San Francisco Giants play their hated rivals, the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Giants went into LA and won that game on opening day. And at some point after the game, he was approached by two Dodgers fans who literally beat him half to death. Obviously, they were frustrated and angry that the Dodgers lost that game, and they saw him, I would assume, being happy about the Giants winning the game, and they literally beat him half to death. He is permanently disabled with brain damage, and finally, all of this went through the courts, the two guys that beat that Giants fan, and one of the guys received 4 years in prison. The other guy received 8 years in prison. Now, where is justice for the victim? In 4 years, is his brain damage going to be healed? Is his permanent disability going to be healed? Obviously not, because the disability is permanent. The other guy that got 8 years, even in 8 years, will the victim of this horrible, stupid crime, will he be healed? Will he be better? The answer is no. He is permanently disabled, permanently brain damaged. So why do these two guys get off in 4 years and 8 years? I think the punishment should fit the crime. This innocent guy who just went to watch his team play baseball is given a life sentence of pain and suffering. So why do the guys that did this horrible crime, why do they get out in 4 to 8 years? In my world, these guys would be suffering permanently, just like their victim. They would be in jail for life in, the most horrible way possible to suffer. I wish, in the real world that something like that could happen, but unfortunately the justice system doesn't always allow for that. I mean, we have, problems with our justice system in my opinion, and, maybe in a future show I'll get into it in length or whatever. There are issues. I mean, we always seem to be worried about the rights of the people that commit these terrible crimes and not as much for the people that are victimized. It's like, where are the people speaking for the victims? We're always concerned about, we can't have cruel and unusual punishment. We have to watch out for his or her rights. And it seems like the victim just gets lost in the process. And I don't know. It just doesn't seem right. Because this guy's permanently brain damaged, permanently disabled. He will never be what he was. And these guys, 4 to 8 years, they're young men. They'll come out of jail as young men and go right back to whatever lives they had. It's pathetic. It's ridiculous. But our justice system, flawed that it might be, is still the best one in the world. And we have to follow it. And hopefully, somebody will come up with a way to try and combat, these horrible things from going on and getting more justice for the victims. So hopefully we'll look forward to that in the future, I hope. Now on to something that's, this isn't pleasant. I've got one more non-pleasant thing to discuss before I get into things that are a little more pleasant to discuss. The issue with the Miami Dolphins, with Richie Incognito and the bullying of Martin and things of that nature. Now, I heard a press conference with the head coach of the Dolphins. As you probably know, there were a couple of people on the staff. I believe it was a trainer, maybe an assistant coach, that were fired because they knew things were going on and they didn't tell anybody. And not only did they not tell anybody, but they were actually complicit in it. I'm hearing that they were laughing and going along with the bullying and the degrading of Jonathan Martin. So, of course, and rightfully so, they were terminated. But I heard the head coach, Coach Philbin of the Dolphins, say that he is the unquestioned leader of the team. Everything goes through him. The buck stops with him. So he's making it like he is law and order there, and he is in total charge. Well, if that's the case, how do you not know of something like this going on in the locker room? This is not some small little detail that, it's totally understandable that you don't know anything about. This is major degrading of somebody, major bullying going on for a long period of time. How do you not know? How are you that clueless of these kind of things that are going on in your locker room, but yet you're saying that I'm in control of the situation, the buck stops with me, I'm responsible for everything. How are you this clueless? There is no way that you could be this clueless of something this serious going on in your locker room. And if it is true that he says he had no idea, which I don't believe for a second, but let's just say for a second it is true. If it is true that you're that clueless, there is no way that you should be allowed in a position of being the head coach of an NFL football team. And if you're that clueless a person, I wouldn't even want you to be in charge of my lemonade stand. If you're that dumb and that clueless and that out of touch with what you're in charge of and the people you're in charge of, you need to go. And I think that's why the Dolphins, it's one of the many reasons. You know, there are plenty of other reasons besides this one, but this seems to be the major one, that the Dolphins have been mired in mediocrity for, 15, 20 years now, and I don't see it getting any better if they're going to have leadership like this, and absolutely no leadership, obviously, in the locker room whatsoever, because do you think this would have happened in like the Giants locker room or the Patriots locker room or the Steelers locker room? There's a reason that the Giants, the Patriots, the Steelers, for many, many decades, have had many playoff appearances, championships, stable ownership, stable teams. This kind of nonsense would never go on in places like that. So the Miami Dolphins are just a mess. They need to clean house. They need to get real leadership in there in terms of players in the locker room. A real head coach that is respected by the team and is in charge, disciplines the team. The Dolphins just need an entire overhaul of just about everything that they've got there. It's pathetic, it's ridiculous, and hopefully the NFL will come down really hard on the Dolphins. My brother will hate that. Grew up in New York City with me, lifelong Dolphins fan. He'll hate the fact that I'm saying that, but it's true. The NFL needs to do something about this because this is horrible, and nothing like this should ever be allowed to happen in the NFL. So hopefully the NFL will stand up and come in and help the Dolphins get back to prominence where they were maybe 30, 40 years ago, back in Don Shula's days. But anyway, I'm just the Ray Rice thing, back to that. It's like, it seems like, and I know it's not everybody in professional sports, but it seems like there are a lot of ignorant people in professional sports. I know it's not everybody, and it's kind of a harsh thing to say. Of course, there are decent people in sports, good people, but we don't hear about them. We don't hear very much about the athletes that are doing good things, not only with the fans, but charity work and just being decent human beings. Is it that hard to be a decent human being? I don't find it that difficult. I'm far from perfect, made my mistakes, but I know how to treat people. I know how to be a decent human being. It's not something that I have to think about. Being a decent human being should be natural, like breathing. It shouldn't be something you even have to think about. So I don't understand it. These professional athletes, Ray Rice with the domestic violence. We've had numerous, especially in the NFL it seems, but the NBA, hockey, baseball, numerous incidents involving these guys beating their girlfriends, their wives, their fiancés. I don't get it. There are numerous weapons violations. Guys bringing weapons into the locker room, bringing weapons into the airport, claiming, oh, I forgot it was there. Really? You forgot you had a loaded weapon that you're about to carry onto an airplane? Have you forgotten about September 11th, 2001? Really? Are you that clueless? Maybe you are. Maybe some of these guys are just that ignorant. I don't know. But it seems like the ignorance is like overwhelming in sports because that's all we hear, all we see. Let's at least sprinkle in the good guys that are doing things the right way. The Derek Jeters of the world, now that he's retiring, he's in the news. He is the epitome of class on and off the field. He knows how to treat people. He knows how to play the game right. He knows how to conduct himself. But we don't hear about him very much in that regard. All we hear about, the domestic violence, the weapons, all of these guys with the marijuana and the other drugs, whether they're dealing drugs, using them, whatever it is. These guys don't know how to drive. They're driving over 100 miles an hour. Guys like Jadeveon Clowney, who's not even in the NFL yet, twice in, was it a week? Maybe less than a week? Got charged with excessive speed and reckless driving. Marshawn Lynch of the champion Seahawks, 2012, got a DUI that just, I think it was yesterday or the day before, got knocked down to reckless driving. What is the matter with these guys? Are they just totally clueless, brainless, stupid? What is it? Please let me know, because I don't want to dog these guys out if they're intelligent and they just don't know how to show it, but I'm not buying it. It seems like a lot of these guys are ignorant. I don't know what the reason is. I'm sure their upbringing had a lot to do with it. Then all of a sudden they're famous and they have all of this money and they have absolutely no idea how to handle it and how to handle themselves because they're really immature and not very intelligent. But somebody needs to do something. The NFL needs to step in with all of these things that I mentioned, because if you give somebody a $20,000 fine or $25,000 or $50,000, whatever, that's like $1 to ordinary people like you and me. It means nothing. They really have to get nailed to get a lesson taught to them. You're playing in the NFL. It is not a right. It is a privilege. You will conduct yourself properly or you will not be in this league. Period. End of story. You will conduct yourself like a decent human being representing the NFL, your city, the league. You will be decent to the fans. You will know how to conduct yourself like a decent man, or you will be out of this league as fast as you can say NFL. So I have no problem with Roger Goodell. I like him as a commissioner. I know some people think he's too harsh with things. I don't. I don't think he's harsh enough. He needs to teach these morons how to be respectable citizens and represent the city they play for and represent the league properly like decent human beings. If you don't, you're out. Period. Then you can go out into the real world and try and live the way you want to live. But you are not going to do it in the NFL. You're out if you can't act like a decent human being. Now, a deep breath. I've got a couple of quick things I wanted to talk about that are not me venting, which occasionally you'll hear me vent on shows because it is education of sports with a side of my New York attitude, which I definitely have, and occasionally I will show. But now, I was watching the Heat and the Thunder last night. So it was LeBron against Durant. And I know Durant has had an MVP type season, and probably if they voted today, Durant would get it. He is not as good as LeBron James. As great as Durant is, he is an absolute monster on the offensive end, where he can just, at 6'10", pull up for a three from 30 and hit it. He is amazing. He may end up, and probably will end up, one of the great pure scorers of all time, maybe the greatest by the time he's finished. I don't know. He is not as good as LeBron James. LeBron James does it all. He is superior to Durant on defense. He is superior in assists. He is superior in rebounds. And just as good or close to as good offensively as Durant. All around, with the freakish size of LeBron James. I have met LeBron James in person. He is every bit of 6'8", 6'9", 260 pounds. I'm about 6'4", 215, 220, and he dwarfed me. He made me look really, really small. The guy is like chiseled out of granite. And with the speed and the ball handling, his defensive ability, the ability of himself to make everybody around him far better than they really are, Durant really doesn't have that yet. He is working towards that. Durant is an incredible offensive scorer. He is not awesome on defense, even though he's better than he was. He is not an awesome assist and rebounding guy, even though he is improving on that. He is the number one scorer in the league. There's no question about it. But we're talking basketball player. That's all around. That's everything, not just offense. It's defense. It's rebounding. It's assisting. LeBron is the number one player in the world, period, end of discussion, as far as I'm concerned. So the last thing I wanted to discuss for the day is, as I'm doing this show on Friday, February 21st, it is 10:15 here in the eastern United States, 10:15 in the morning. The United States men's hockey team is going to be playing at 12 noon against Canada. Now, I'm sure we know about the disappointment of the women's game. The USA women had a 2-0 lead with 3.5 minutes to go in the third period. They gave up 2 goals in less than 3 minutes, went into overtime, and Canada had a 5-on-3 on the power play, and the Canadian women's team took the gold from the U.S. The U.S. lost it right at the end. But of more interest to me, and I was sad to hear that, I'm not a big, if I haven't mentioned it in previous shows, I'm not a big fan of women's sports. I admire and respect women, but women's sports just don't interest me. But of course, I was rooting for the women, the USA women, to win yesterday, and I was disappointed that they lost. But today at 12 o'clock, the men are going to take on a mountain of a challenge. I said before the Olympics started that I thought that Canada would win the gold medal, as they did in overtime 4 years ago when they beat the U.S. for the gold in overtime. A tremendous, tremendous game. One of the best hockey games I've ever seen. Unfortunately, the U.S. lost it in overtime. I am rooting really hard for the U.S. to win today. I really hope they do it. I recently got word that we lost one of our best defensemen for the game today, so an already tough challenge is going to be made even tougher. Of course, I am as prideful of being an American as anybody else is. I am going to root really, really hard for the U.S., but I think as hard as I'm rooting, and we're all rooting, as hard as the U.S. is going to play, I think Canada is just going to be a little too much, and Canada will win and go play Sweden in the gold medal game, and I believe Canada will win that one too. But for my next show next week, I hope I am eating crow because the U.S. beat Canada and then beat Sweden and the U.S. won gold. That's what I'm hoping will happen. But I really do think that Canada will beat the United States today. Let me be wrong. Please, let me be wrong. All right, that's all I've got for today. Have a great weekend, everybody. Please follow me on Facebook and Twitter and on YouTube. Please go to the Sportsocology show. It may be just typing in Sportsocology, but go to the show. Please subscribe. That will let you know every time I do a new show that you'll be notified about that. Please tell your family and your friends about the show. And please start to leave comments for me. Things that I can do better, things that you like that I do, suggestions to make me better, because that's what it's all about. I love doing what I do, but I am always ready to listen to ideas for the show, ideas in making myself better, whatever it is that I can make myself better and even enhance the enjoyment that I have in doing the show every week. So please subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Have a great weekend out there, and I'll see you next time, America, wherever you are.